Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the India Today South Conclave 2023, where in a way we're not really down south but up south. And the reason for that and the reason for this southern comfort is quite remarkably what the south has achieved in the world of culture and especially in cinema. Many would now say that Hyderabad has become the capital of Indian cinema, certainly when it comes to volumes and revenues and the big hit films that they've made. And with it has come the emergence of a pan-India star in the truest sense of the word, stars that cut across geographies and across language. And in a way, a symbol of that new emerging pan-India star is our guest today, someone who's become a true superstar. Please welcome Rana Daggubati, who is an ambassador for this new pan-India star that's emerged.
So can I jump in on that?
Yes, please.
Not new and emerging, established and glorious. Rana Daggubati in Baahubali was such a sight to behold. He's been there, transcended borders from Hyderabad, Tollywood to Bollywood, way before a lot many others. So he's truly the pan-India star in every sense and the first to pave the way.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
How does that feel, to be called a pan-India star? Was that the way you saw it? Before this interview began, I mentioned that Hyderabad is the capital of Indian cinema, and you looked at me and said, wow. Is that what you thought of when you were crossing geographies a few years ago?
First, good evening. Thank you for having me here. And sir, thank you. So when I started my career, 15 years ago now, as an actor, I shifted from being a visual effects supervisor to being an actor. When I was growing up, it never bothered me which language the film was, because I grew up in Chennai, I moved to Hyderabad, so we got to watch Tamil films, we got to watch Telugu films. Enough of Malayalam films were there in Madras to watch at that point. I grew up watching a lot of English films. So when I became an actor, that story had to tell me which language it was made rather than the other way around. So it was pretty normal to me in the way I started. So my first film was a film called Leader in Telugu, which is a political drama. And most people thought I was trying to be a politician and not an actor. So hence, my second film came from Hindi, which was Dam Maro Dam. I was picked up for a Hindi film there. Now for me, it was filmmaking that I understood. It's a camera, it's a bunch of actors, it's a story that you're telling. And it really didn't matter where in India you're saying it, it still was a great story. And just taking from that leaf of unity and diversity, right? And I think cinema represents it to the biggest form in everything. And the first 5 years of my career, I spent convincing people in Bombay that I was not from Chennai, but from Hyderabad, because they didn't know the difference. The second round, I was trying to convince producers in Telugu to say, here you go, we can actually make a film in Hindi, and there's something that we can do together. The industries were doing the same things, but no one spoke to one another. So I think in some ways, Baahubali and Ghazi became the first two films to shatter all of these things and emerge that one industry.
You know, but in many ways, you were, as Nabila rightly says, a trendsetter forerunner, because you do Leader and you get Filmfare Best Debut for Leader, and then you do Dam Maro Dam and you get a Best Debut in Hindi cinema as well. So to be able to do your first two films in two different languages and make a success of both, that doesn't happen too often.
Well, I just think they were the right stories that came my way, and just amazing filmmakers that were also looking to make something extremely different at that point. Like, for instance, when I made my first film, Leader, Telugu cinema was only known for big commercial movies where a lot of song and dance, a lot of action. But my film was very alternative. It was the first film without a song, without an action sequence, but telling a thrilling political story. So I think I was, in some ways, part of these changes in storytelling I could be. And that was my growth in the movies.
You know, and I'd really like to say with Dam Maro Dam, for at least the women, when you watch Bollywood movies, you're usually watching heroes who are super fair and, you know, the typical North Indian looks. Rana came with such a refreshing change. The tall, bad boy, rugged, brown, which
Thank you. That's the wild side of the South. That's how we look.
Bollywood was waiting for, and he came with such a refreshing change. Damaru Rana Daggubati had, I think, the biggest success, more than the movie itself. It was you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Is that because, in a way, the stereotype of the actor also has changed? What do you need to be to become a star? You don't need to have a particular kind of look anymore, as was the case possibly 30, 40 years ago.
It's actually funny because the audience always wants something new, but as an industry, we try to formalize things and say this is how, but they don't want to see the same person again. Or you don't want to see a second Hrithik Roshan because there's already a Hrithik Roshan. You don't want to see a second Shah Rukh Khan. Unless you're able to bring something unique, I don't think there's a place for second best anymore.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you're saying that, but you know, you're making it sound all very easy. That, you know, you were there at the right place at the right time. The film world was changing. New filmmakers were coming with new ideas. But it must have been tough, even though you come from a film family. You know, I was reading your biography and then I said, D. Rama Naidu's grandson. You know, your grandfather made some of the biggest hits of Bollywood, as it was called then. But was it as easy as you make it out to be to make this transition to do cinema in different languages? What was the biggest challenge you faced?
See, the biggest challenge I faced was even before I was an actor, because I was actually trying to produce films. So I produced a film in 2005. That was my first film. It was called Bommalata, Belly Full of Dreams was the festival title for the film. It won 2 national awards and the film never got a theatrical release because it was so independent. And I spent 2 years from then trying to convince actors, trying to convince other technicians to buy into the stories that I wanted to tell. And that didn't happen. So hence I became an actor. So, my career started in a very, very different manner from everybody else. It was hard. The hard part was convincing the industry to buy into new storytelling ideas. Mm-hmm. That was the hard part, and it continues. It's changed now quite dramatically, but at least till 3 years ago, it was a hard push.
You know, I'd really say that Rana Daggubati is more an entrepreneur at heart and more than an actor. I think that's more closer to your...
Well, a lot of people think the entrepreneur in me made me the actor, so I don't know which one comes first.
You're venturing into way too many streams. Animation is one of them, and we believe that your production house right now has invested into every genre, every language. So it's like mass production. What's going on?
Well, so my first job was visual effects. So a lot of people know me only as a visual effects supervisor. I've worked over 80 films in 5 years of the time I was running it. So that was my first legit job. I was hoping a filmmaker like Rajamouli would have come with a film like Baahubali to my visual effects facility, but that never happened. And I had to sell the company out and move on. And there you go. But I became part of the biggest visual effects film anyways in the course of time. But I think I was just early in the trend in some ways, but I'm just happy that finally all of this comes together.
You know, I have one request, sir. Rana, that one dialogue from Baahubali, please. We really want to evoke emotion right now. I'm
Which
sure.
one, right?
Your best. The voice itself is enough, is gripping enough.
How do we get there? Okay, let's go. So it's funny, every time I say a line in Baahubali, because I'm in a different city, they heard it in a different language. So what I say sometimes doesn't mean anything to the ones here. Okay, let me not say it in Telugu, let me try it in Tamil.
Yeah.
உன் விசுவாசத்தை நினைத்து பார்க்கும் போதெல்லாம் எனக்கு ஆச்சரியமாக இருக்கிறது கட்டப்பா. என்னைய கொள்ள வேண்டும் என்ற வன்மம் முன்னுக்குள்ளே இருப்பதை நான் அறிவேன். ஆனால் உன் உயிரை கொடுத்து என்னை காப்பாற்றுகிறாய். வேடிக்கையாக இல்லை.
Say it now. You see, your Telugu audience will feel that, you know, here is Rana sort of discarding his Telugu identity. So you got to say it in Telugu as well.
Actually, the Telugu has a very different beat for this. It's shot multiple times, so it doesn't phrase this way. But let me tell you another fun Telugu line then. I actually had a line I used to keep saying on set. It was not mine, but I used to keep saying it so everyone hears it and just believes that I'm king for that time. So it's Ramya Krishna's line actually in the film, which is my favorite. Ide na mata, na mate sasanam. That's my favorite Telugu line from that film.
As you said, you started off life as this visual effects, graphics man. Visual graphics have become more and more important in cinema. When you first took up Baahubali, when Rajamouli approaches you and you see what he's doing with cinema, what did you think? Did you ever think that visual graphics would become so central to the success of films like an RRR or a Baahubali, just the scale at which filmmakers were operating? Do you give the credit to Rajamouli's vision in a way, or do you believe Indian cinema was slowly coming of age?
See, one is, most credit will go to a visionary who's built it, that's Rajamouli. Because unless you have someone who's daring to put all of this together, things don't move. And it's only that one story that pushes boundaries of cinema completely. See, like Baahubali is special, just not because I'm in it, but it didn't change our careers, but it changed the way we look at cinema forever in India. We haven't, before Baahubali, there was no sense of what was the size of Indian cinema. And that film really proved to be, listen, if India wakes up and wants to watch a film, it's 1,000 crore film to start. So the scale of the country really came out. The fact that storytelling at very basic core, which is stories of mother, father, brother, bonding, and scale, all came together. So I think that really set us on a path to dream big. And I was very happy that finally it got here, because I was hoping it to happen many years ago. Like, for example, something I go back to always in our office references is there was a Malayalam film that actually released called many years ago when I was young. It's called Chota Chetan in Hindi. It's called Kuti Chetan, a Malayalam film. Now that's truly probably the first pan-Indian film where every single one of us in this country watched. It didn't matter where the film was made. It didn't matter who the stars were. But that's never a model anyone ever emulated again. So I feel it was always there. It's no one pushed the full boundary. Telugu used to do it for a little time pre-Baahubali, but not really in the other industries.
Because, I'd heard from a lot of Bollywood filmmakers, even in the 70s, 80s, when they wanted to make films that were technically proficient, the best technicians came south of the Vindhyas. And they'd bring them to the Hindi cinema world. Now it appears Hindi cinema is a step behind the technical quality, because the cinema which is made in the south is just spreading across. So it appears almost as if Bollywood will have to play catch up.
See, in any technology type of space, whether it's cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, the tech knowledge is far advanced from what you see in a city like Bombay.
Really?
For sure. Because the ethos of the new cities is built on tech. If you take Bombay, the enterprises are very different. You see retail-based enterprises, you see different tech-based enterprises. But here, Hyderabad, Bangalore come from the core of visual effects, come from the core of tech in some ways. And when you take storytelling, it's still Middle India that we live in. It's not extremely urbanized in the sense of how you'd probably live in a city like Mumbai. It's much more core to how majority of India is.
I'd really like to say that Kollywood, that's Telugu film industry, right, is the highest profiting industry in the country, by the way. It's not even Bollywood. It surpassed Bollywood's, profit or turnover. And we believe a lot of the Telugu industry graphics and, visual effect guys work for Hollywood, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, there's a lot of facilities now between Bangalore and Hyderabad that do a lot of international work, actually.
So y'all are way more superior in terms of visual effects, in terms of profit, visual effects, storyline. I think Telugu film industry aces it.
Yeah, we're good creative capitalists. We figured that way out. And we're people who enjoy scale a lot.
Yeah.
And if you meet any filmmaker, every time they're trying to break their boundaries. So no one plays safe really. It feels like it's all safe, but all the effort is put in that film.
Let me throw the numbers. When I look at the numbers, South Indian film industry revenue jumped 96% to over 7,800 crores in 2022. Break down that further. Tamil film industry topped it with 2,950 crores in revenues. Telugu next 2,500. Kannada third 1,570, and then Malayalam 816 crores. It almost seems as if the world has discovered southern cinema. But do you find, since you do a lot of cinema you've worked with the Hindi film industry, are they more accepting or are they still grudging about, can Rana Daggubati be, are you still seen as a southern film star in their eyes, in the producers, in the directors, in those who work in Hindi cinema?
See, how you're seen is not a matter anymore, because it's how the people ultimately see you. If depends on the city that you're in now is where you're from. I'm from Hyderabad, so I'll always be from the southern industry. There's people who want to move to Bombay, build a career there. And I think ultimately it's about who follows what storytelling. It's saying, okay, now this is more comfortable for me. I just chose it differently. I said, let the story define which language it should be in. If I find a Dhammarodham, it should be in Hindi. If you find a Krishna Mande Jagat Gurum, it has to be in Telugu. So I think we've flipped that other way.
And has OTT changed the rules of the game? Because once you have something on OTT, I can just click a button and decide which language I'm going to see the film.
100%. See, it's like the success of all of these South Indian films that you're talking about. Today, even before Baahubali, started being very popular in the television sector. If you take Set Max or Star, that were dubbing all the Telugu, Tamil films in Hindi.
Yeah.
So even before Baahubali actually landed, a lot of stars were familiar, a lot of storytelling was familiar.
Yeah.
And Baahubali actually came and sat on top of that. So I feel like it's an ongoing thing that we didn't notice. And then once there was a big film, then the OTT really opened up all of these things.
On that note, speaking of OTT, Rana also again was one of the first to venture into OTTs. Rana, you're really setting precedence to all actors. Most of the top stars, most of them, be it even Shah Rukh for that matter, or if you speak of the Khans, and even in the Telugu film industry, all the top guys took a while to venture into OTT. Even now, I don't say, is Allu Arjun Ramcharan on OTT?
No,
not yet, exactly. So there is a certain mental block that you have when it comes to OTT, that you're stepping short or you're just stepping down. Do bust that myth for us, because you're as big a star, but you ventured into OTT all arms wide open.
See, like this is how I built my entire career. I built it on naysayers, where say if an actor's first film doesn't have a song or a fight, he doesn't become a commercial actor. And my film was exactly that. I didn't do anything regular on my next either, which is another language. They didn't believe films that don't have love stories work, and I made a submarine war movie that did. They never believed a Telugu film could come onto the other place. That did. So any change will always be stopped in the beginning by someone, and you'd like to see a few people doing it first before you jump in. And then after that it'll become a standard.
But do you think OTT is a step down or a step up?
It's different. It's not anything. Like this happened to me when I was doing a talk show. So when I did a talk show, I did it pre-OTT. I was on television.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, movie stars shouldn't be doing talk shows and this and that. And now you have like 7 actors across the country doing talk shows. So it doesn't matter, because a new storytelling form will take some time to catch. And funnily, not by the people, but by the industry that's making it. Because you're a little resistant to change, right, in some ways. But I just like change. I just get bored of the same thing over and over again.
Tell us what it was like growing up. You grew up surrounded by people in and around the film industry. Yes. And we've seen that with a number of stars in the Telugu film industry. In the Hindi film industry, when you raise questions around that, it's called nepotism.
Yes, of course.
So how is it seen? Is it seen any differently in your world, that those who have family connections get the breaks that others don't? Or do you believe it's much more egalitarian, much more meritocratic than possibly even Bollywood is?
So this is something that I spoke to some journalists at some point about and went really viral. So I'm going to keep it slightly lower in that tone. But
no, what did you say then?
I've been in the movies now officially working for over 20 years.
Right.
when the time we started, nobody wanted to be in the movies. Like, it would be like this, like, here you go, this is my son, he's failed 9th grade, he is not doing anything. Why don't you make him an actor or an AD in your movies? I'm like, hey, ye kya hai? He's not useful for you, you have a sugar factory, why don't you take him there? So these were the people who used to come first. And I know this a lot more because we shifted from Chennai to Hyderabad when the Telugu industry shifted. We moved to a place called Film Nagar, which was titled Film Nagar because all of us were moving. It was just rocks. It was just rocks and like 3 houses. One of them was where I was living, which was a shooting house where I lived also. So 90% of my schooling life, I had breakfast on a film set that was happening in my house and left. So that was our culture. And it was very hard for people to be in it. And it was just those few years when it became an industry, it was like, now no one's giving anybody a chance. I'm like, there's never been a industrialization process that happened in the entertainment world. It was always independent producers or talent that was building organizations and building it only with their groups, right? So I think now is the time when you can really create an industry because we're talking of India as one in some ways. Earlier, if you made Telugu films, you could only build a Telugu production company. You made Malayalam films, you could only build a company out of Trivandrum or Cochin. So today you can be here, you can make a film that the whole world will watch.
So are you saying therefore, let's get this clear, if I'm someone who doesn't have a film background, but I believe I have the raw talent, the skill, do you think it's a level playing field out there to make those breakthroughs? Or do you think that a Rana would have a bigger advantage compared to anyone else?
So like I tell them, I say, people in the world of the film families might not be great actors, but they'll be great agents. It's because everybody knows everybody, right? It's like any industry where like if I got to get in the media group, it's the people you know. You have a sector of people and you pick from that. And there's no training ground for it. See, because we don't have, it's unlike the West where every year University of Southern California is sending out 5,000 students in film, in art, and learning for 4 years. Here, we learn on the job. 98 or 99% of the entire Indian entertainment industry today hasn't been formally trained anywhere. Where we've just learned, we are winging it, right? We learned over time, we learned visual effects, so that learning process is where India is. So I think chances are now pretty fair because in the digital world, you make something on YouTube, you put it up there, there's a whole world that will actually give you merit. So the faster systems are coming in, but
I'd like to ask you.
To me, it's a responsibility, right? Like take a sense of India. If your parents have built, or 3 generations of your family worked hard to build something, and if you are not going to scale that, it's your irresponsibility, or you're called somebody who's not doing things right in your family, correct? Simple.
No, so are you saying that you're sort of you don't see yourself as a product of this sort of nepotistic world, but you were pushing forward a family legacy to scale it up, to take it in new directions?
100%. See, it takes a generation to build another generation. Like if the last bunch of people didn't come out of nowhere and decide to make films, risk all their monies. And 3-4 years ago, where was money in the movies coming from? It was all movies that it's either their house, their property that was pledged to bank, made on interest, and it comes back. And you used to pay about what, 24%, 28% interest? That's the borrowing in films. And for a film like Baahubali, it was a borrowing of 300-400 crores at that interest. Now beat that. Now that's hard for institutions to build because its money is that we never had that industrialization like other pieces had. So that's where we are, and I think it takes a lot of effort from everybody who's there in the business to build these channels. I think it's our responsibility to make sure more people come in.
Right. To take off from Rajdeep's question, Telugu industry, just like Bollywood, has a lot of film families. You come from a film family. Ram Charan Teja, who's a very close friend of yours, also comes from a film family. There are so many legacy families, production houses. How difficult or easy is it for an outsider? I know there are a few names that have made it big, but yet the nepotism debate could very well erupt even within your industry?
I don't know why. It's not spoken about because it feels like if the son doesn't do better than the father, the son is bad. And so, I mean, that's a regular thing, right? You want your son to do better than you, and that's a normal thing. And whatever you learn, you like to teach your kids. So I think it's seen a normal way. And this is something I read. I like to re-quote because you all are smart people. So nepotism as a term is supposed to be used in politics and in publicly listed companies. So no one ever questions that, but they only keep questioning film people for it. I was like, why?
Let's come back to Baahubali. Because, let's talk about how it all changed. When you all were making this film, I look at it as just a viewer. This, as you said, the risk taken to scale a film up, to put that kind of money into a film, not sure whether you're going to, whether it's going to be this mega hit. When you're making a film like that, did you really think that this is going to change the rules of the game as you call it today? And what is it about, take us into the mind of your entire cast at the time.
See, I mean, today on hindsight, if I say it, very few people believe it, but like part one was a struggle, was an extreme struggle.
Really?
Like we spent twice over the highest collected film in Telugu. So no math ever made justification of what we borrowed of how we made it. And as a team, we had that spirit because we knew what the film is. And every day I went to that set, we knew we were building something or doing something for the first time ever. But everybody else doesn't know it, right? And okay, now we've surpassed Telugu as a industry itself because we spent more money, not that we collected it. We're hoping it will dub and do well in other languages because of the scale, hoping that people in India connect to it in a manner because it's still an Indian folklore tale in some ways. Just that brash attitude of saying, let's land up in Hindi and see what happens. The release was the most stressful time. Like, I don't think that feeling anybody should ever have again because it was 180 crores plus borrowed at, again, 24% interest over 5.5 years. So calculate the interest.
Wow.
Then we shot part of part 2. So if this didn't work, that we didn't know what was happening.
Wow.
Yeah. And by which time Prabhas and I had already left the movies for about 4 years because this was in the making. And yeah, and that's it. So I remember in Delhi was where our last press meet before the release was, and all of us were supposed to come back to Bombay for a screening, and Prabhas decided he's not coming. He said, I'm not coming. I said, for what? He said, I just want to see Delhi, he said. I said, what do you mean? He said, no, I said, I'm just too stressed. I'm just going to sit around in Delhi and not come. Rajmouli comes back and he says, okay, listen, I think I'm going back to Hyderabad. I said, why? He said, I don't know, it just feels funny not being in Hyderabad during release. So now I was the only guy who was sitting there in Bombay in this. So it was really an extreme pressure moment where, because no one knew the math of what can come back or any of it. So, but
what was the magic? And we've seen it with RRR as well. Is it, as you said earlier, scale that separates these films? Is it just the fantasy folklore idea? Taking fantasy folklore films to another level. What was that X factor that you think made the difference?
I think the first factor is, as Indians, all our stories come with scale. Whether it's the Mahabharata, whether it's the Ramayana, every cultural relevance to us comes at scale. And this is the first time India got to see that again. It happened a lot in the black and white era. But the minute we came to color, we didn't know how to do it well enough. We needed visual effects, we needed budget, we needed brave men like Rajmouli and Shobhu, the producer of the film, to come forward and make something like this. So I think that's what is probably needed.
I have to ask you this. It's somehow these India Today conclaves have stereotyped me also. Whenever there's a big star from the south making it big, I'm invited to speak to them, which I'm okay with. So we had Yash with KGF in November. Then we had Ramcharan in March. And now we've got you in June. Is there competition at all between all of you? I believe Ramcharan and you are great friends. Is there that rivalry? Is there the battles that we used to see from the outside? Who's number one? Who's, is RRR getting more money than a Baahubali made? Is there that competition than a KGF?
It's competing in some strange way, but it's really to break different boundaries. And as a group, I think I can speak for many of the actors in South India because all of them are friends and definitely the names you spoke about. There's an extreme camaraderie for sure. For a simple reason, everyone's trying to do something which is new. And if you've realized, whether it's Baahubali, RRR, KGF, all of these films are beyond actors. They're spectacles. It doesn't, take for an audience that never saw Prabhas and me before. We were just two new people who looked the part. Very few people saw Yash before KGF. But it was the guy who looked the part. It didn't matter who he was, where he came from, which is more a media or a film understanding, saying, okay, this and this is competing. They're two different people. They don't even look the same. They're not telling the same story. They're not releasing on the same day. It's not like there's a split screen and you're watching Charan's film and my film. So that doesn't happen. So in that very definitive way that is presumed from the outside, that doesn't happen at all.
But I think more than the stars themselves, Rajdeep, it's the fans association that are usually at war. They're trolling you or trending you, and that's in competition more on Twitter or social media platforms rather than the stars themselves.
But yeah, that's to do with anything that has social media following, right? It happens even on YouTube.
Not as
followers.
much as Southern stars and their fan base.
Yeah, definitely. There is a larger fan base which is held over the stars. It's also cultivated well because they're used consistently as social causes. There's good to it very much, and there'll be some ridiculous things.
I'm just wondering whether you and Ramcharan had some kind of joint celebration together that we don't know about after RRR won an Oscar, for example.
We've been celebrating RRR in one constant rhythm of it. So, see, we celebrate each other's cinemas fully. There's a next film that's actually happening now, which is Project K, which Nagashwin, a director from Telugu, is directing with Prabhas, Mr. Bachchan and Deepika Padukone. Now, that's a film that we're really looking forward to in Telugu because that's really, I think, going to break boundaries that both Baahubali and RRR haven't done. It's pushing that boundary to the next edge, and I'm really looking forward to that film, and that I feel can really become a global film from Telugu.
A global film. So you're not even now thinking of being a pan-India star. Now you're thinking, when I go to San Francisco.
See, if you peep into conversations between the actors that you speak about, right? Everyone's talking to each other. Hey, do you know the Mission Impossible director? Let's go get him. That's our energy. It's like our appetite has gone off somewhere else. India is now, it's like, here you go. This is our base. Now let's start making bigger films.
So you could have Rana with Tom Cruise.
Or just Rana and Charan just landing up with a film there. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's fantastic.
That is the trend now, sir. Indian cinema has gone global, and with OTT, movies that release in theaters finally come to OTT, and the reach is all over.
So you actually think the day is not far when we could have this kind of sort of global collaboration or an Indian film which is designed for a totally global audience, not even an Indian audience anymore? Is that why you say this?
Yeah,
your latest film is going to break new boundaries?
I think global collaborations will happen without even us making any effort. But it's not far where an Indian film with Indian filmmakers, directors, origin will land up in the West like a film in the West does. I think Asian films, Chinese films did it many years ago. Take, for example, the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon moment that Asian filmmakers had. India will see that very, very soon. Because the globe is getting closer and closer to our culture. They're liking new things. They're exploring the old. And here you go. What is abundant in our country is stories. So we're ready to.
Is that what at the end of the day it boils down to? The story is the star. Whether it's a Rana, whether it's a Ramcharan, whether it's Yash, whether it's anyone across our cinema, the story has to be the star. Is that the big change that in a way is taking place?
For sure. It always has been, but lesser. But now content has taken full front seat. Mediocrity is not accepted anymore. Whether there's a star in the film, whether it doesn't matter as long as the product is good. Take for example, and again, when I say spectacle really doesn't need to be big budget. If you take for example Pushpa that came out, or Kantara that came out. Now both of these films were regularly made at the budgets in their languages and still were able to cut across. And what I love about these two films that they didn't go through the drill of a P&A that that Hindi films spend. They landed up on the short P&A that South Indian films spend and still landed across the country. So I think models are changing, models are evolving. We'll find a way. We landed in India, we'll find a way to land in the world.
Telugu films spend a lot, but
No, not really.
Really?
It's just creative stuff. It's not, we spend the least. The biggest Telugu film will have less than 2.5 crores of publicity money.
right, in
Beat
compared
that.
to Bollywood. All right. Since you spoke about stories, the King, sir, I'd like to ask today, we're in an age of biopics, stories based on real life, real people. And I haven't seen Rana really venturing into troubled waters or anything controversial, but your take on freedom of expression, a movie is being made on Savarkar now. We have Randeep Hooda, who has announced a movie on Savarkar. We have Ram Charan Teja, who's announced his first production around Savarkar. How do you look at that?
Well, I think it's good that people are telling stories finally, which are, see, earlier it was made to a commercial functionality, right? It was, here you go, you got to make a film in this budget, you got to get people out in theaters. There was a mechanism for it and a very tight business rope that we were running on. But now there's a lot more creative freedom, whether it's with, you can do a direct to digital release, you can just play it in limited screens, or you can get multiple languages. And I think now it's important for whoever has the ethic to wanting to tell a story should go forward and tell it in the manner they should.
The one thing I do notice about southern film stars, if I may say so, is remarkably fit. All of you seem to be in the gym. I mean, I see pictures of you in the gym. I've seen pictures of Ram Charan in the gym, Yash in the gym. Is that part of this action hero image, or is that also the evolution of the star, that you've got to spend, much like our cricketers, who spend more time now in the gym as much as they do on the field?
So again, let me demystify something for you. So most of us actors, at least in the South, we don't work out unless there's a film. None of them.
Oh, so it's meant for the film.
It's like going to gym is like, it's part of our job. So it's not something that many of us enjoy or none of that. So it's, here you go, I have to look like Ballal Deva. Rajmouli said, I have to kill a bison with my bare hands. Now let's see, how do I get back to building that body? So it's only a function of our film. And coming to fitness, I have to say the Hindi actors are far, far fitter than all of us. I mean, half the time they don't even have their shirts on. We don't do that so often.
No, I'm looking at Hindi film stars like Shami Kapoor and Rajesh Khanna.
No, sir, younger.
You see, I'm unfortunately from an age before.
No, sir, there are a lot of younger Hindi actors, sir, like Tiger Shroff, Varun Dhawan, all of them.
Yeah, that's right. So,
yes, just saying.
So is that part of now the drill of cinema? Is that, the action, the violent scenes that are, a lot of these films have a lot of violence, which has been a criticism of some of them. But the action hero, has that been also redefined?
I think so. I mean, see, like I said, whatever you build a body is a functionality of the film, very straight up. And if you want to make a cutting edge action film, unless your physicality shows that, it's not possible anymore. I mean, there were, like in the yesteryears, there were many actors who weren't fit enough that were playing big mythology roles, action roles and all of it. But I think today you need a lot more convincing to do that.
How do you choose your script? When you have decided, I'm going to do this film, because you're investing a lot of your time, energy, almost doing only one film at one particular time, whether OTT, whether on the big screen. How do you decide this is the film for? Do you go with the director? Do you go with your instinct?
Oh no, it's actually a much more elaborate process than that. See, I think the first thing that I need to answer is a why. Why am I telling this story? I think if I'm able to answer and articulate that correctly, I think that becomes the first step. The second becomes, very importantly for me, is this something new that I haven't done before? Or is it something that the industry has already done but is new for me? So I'd like to take the latter, where it's the first time anyone is doing this, and that's something that I'd like to pick. Because as an audience growing up, I always wanted to see new things every time I went to the cinemas. So I guess that's what I'm supposed to deliver back as well.
So, Rana, now a new leaf. You're married recently, a family man now. Could I say that? What really?
No, but even
So-
even your marriage, and this is Nabila House, Cinema has changed. Everything is out there on social media, on Instagram. All the little details, not just about about you, but about your wife, about the wedding. You're married to a designer.
Gone are the days, Rajdeep.
You want to tell us a little bit about your love story?
So I think mine was a pretty tech-driven marriage because I got married in the
A
pandemic.
tech-driven or deck-driven?
Tech.
Tech, okay.
So because
I thought you all met on a ship deck.
No. So again, we got married in the pandemic. So we didn't invite anybody, but it was just my family and hers in my office, in the studio. And I sent VR headsets to all our friends. So everyone watched my wedding in VR. So I had a live streaming of the wedding.
Really?
To a
That
friend.
is
Yeah.
so cool.
So hence, that's what it was. And actually, all the news that you've heard on social media is rigged to days later or images that are wrong. That's what we've chosen to publish.
So basically, you're not
Wow,
just.
very
So
smart.
basically,
So
you're
the
not
truth
just.
only lies with us.
So basically, what you're telling us, you're not just innovative on screen, you're off screen. Even your marriage, in a sense, was a total new way of doing
Yeah,
that.
we should. No, we should. Why not? Why not?
But that was beautiful. Your celebration of love was all over social media. I'd like to ask you, gone are the days where stars would, keep their marriage low profile, not speak about their wife, or the lady not speaking of their husband because their market value comes down. No, tell me, Rana, anything about the market value?
No, yeah.
Do you still get the same admiration?
I mean,
are you still the hot?
Again, see, this is also like a yesteryear's assumption of what the media would be. And it's usually discussed in media again. It's not like people really care. They're just watching an actor tell a story.
In conclusion, we are here in Kerala.
Sir.
You've done a remake of a acclaimed Malayalam film not too long ago.
Yes.
You played Prithviraj's role in that film. Just trying to understand what next. What is do you see yourself cutting across all geographies, as we've been saying, all languages, and just redefining your character every 5 years? Do you have a sort of long-term goal, or do you live in the moment?
See, my long-term goal is usually for the company. I think as an actor, it's the story will tell me. It's not, we assume that we're choosing the story. It's actually oddly the story that's coming back and choosing us. So I'd like to leave the conclusion with the power of the story. And it's not us who are telling the story. It's the story chooses us, and that's about it.
Who's your hero? Who's Rana Daggubati's hero? We know of you as the hero. Who's been your hero?
See, growing up, my grandfather's always been my hero. And you spoke about competing and competition. And in a home like mine, I had to only compete with them. So I remember when I was producing my first film, I was like, how do I beat this guy? He beat 125 himself. So you have people like, so I think my granddad's been the first mover. And just his thought and his vision to expanding cinema is what I love.
And may I ask, post-pandemic, what's changed in terms of movies? How has the industry evolved?
What's changed is definitely whether it's 10x or 100x, each human being is consuming more content than they ever did.
Wow.
in their lifetimes. So which means first it's good that all of us have work and we'll have work for a really long time. The style of storytelling really changed. Because there's so much on your mobile, on your television with the OTTs in play, it's become a far more better medium to tell drama-based stories because characters can be extended for a long period of time. Conflicts can become more and more. It holds you for a larger tone. And cinema of the big screen became something very experiential. It's not only a static story that you're watching, you want to interact with it or feel something or experience something new. So I think this is broadly where it's changed to.
I'm going to ask this audience a quiz question. What is common between Rana Daggubati, Asaduddin Owaisi, Satya Nadella, and Harsha Bhogle? Anybody know? They all studied in the same college, close but not close enough. They're all products of this wonderful school, Hyderabad Public School. And all of you seem to have a certain self-confidence, and all of you seem to have broken barriers. Something about the school?
Oh, for
Or
sure.
about Hyderabad?
I mean, most of everything that I know, I think I have to first credit to my school, because after school I had no educational career. It was only that I studied in school that I know. And I think I have to
You
tell
never
you.
went to college?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I quit
man.
college 1 year and I studied industrial photography instead.
You've turned out well.
See, I just have to take a minute to talk about HPS, Hyderabad Public School, as a school. It's a campus that's built in like 300 acres. It's been built by the Nizam. It's a school that's it's turning 100 this year as a public school. The idea in today's world where people are building companies, people are building products for a short period of time, whether it's trying to build to scale, quit, exit, raise some money, move forward, forever is an idea that is very rare, and it's HPS that taught us that. That if you want to build something, let's start thinking forever, because great things are only built forever. And that's probably the ethic that the school has taught me, nothing more.
How sweet.
Well, wonderful.
So nostalgic.
As we end and conclude, when we had Yash, he did his walk from KGF. When we had Ram Charan, he did the Natu Natu steps.
See, so I built a career without dancing. So that was my whole claim to fame. It's like I became a movie star without dancing in the movies.
And that's precisely what I told you.
No, actually, I'm really delighted when you said that, because otherwise, I'd be forced to dance with you, and that would be terrible. So,
There you go.
so you spared me that. How would you want to define yourself as we end? See, one guy's done the walk, the other guy's done the dance.
This guy will do the talk.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Well, first, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I just am excited every time I come to Kerala, because this place gives you stories that no place else does.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful the second you land. I'd like to come back here more and more. And funnily enough, I'm producing now a film with Dulquer Salman, who's a Malayalam, the prince of this town. So I'm happy getting closer and closer here. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
He
So that's
stood
it, I'm
up
talking,
even
I'm
before you
leaving.
could just say anything.
okay, so he won't dance, he won't walk, but he sure can talk. Ladies and
Thank you,
gentlemen,
sir.
please give a big hand to
Thank
Rana
you.
Daggubati for giving us a slice of his life. Thank you.
Thank you very much.